Hello everyone and welcome to Midlife Crisis, the show where I talk about every major DC crossover event in chronological order. This week, we are finishing off the countdown to Final Crisis with Part 4, issues 12 all the way through to 1. If you haven't caught up on the first 3 parts, then go back and watch those and then come back to this one. And without further ado, let's just get straight into issue 12 of Countdown to Final Crisis. Issue 12 begins on Apokolips, where Kyle Rayner, Donna Troy, Ray Palmer, and Jason Todd have all arrived after a mysterious message told them to come here, but they don't know why they're supposed to come here. While Jimmy Olsen is having a shower in his apartment alongside Forager, he sees the words "to Apokolips" on the mirror and asks Forager if she wrote it there, so it's also telling him to go to Apokolips. On Themyscira, Mary Marvel has joined forces with Hippolyta, Harley Quinzel, and Holly Robinson, and has gone undercover as a slave working for Granny Goodness, who is currently pretending to be Athena. Harley comes along and starts messing with Mary, bullying her, being real mean. She says that she's acting her role, but you can tell that Harley is enjoying it a little bit too much. Meanwhile, Granny Goodness has a conversation with Darkseid, where Darkseid voices Darkseid's displeasure with the fact that Granny Goodness is focusing more on her own goals than Darkseid's goals, especially since Darkseid's plan is currently going bad. Granny Goodness doesn't care and instead decides to hold a ceremony to reveal her new Amazonian Furies. One of them is a character called Trisha. She's one of the Amazonian recruits that was training with Harley Robinson and Harleen Quinzel earlier. While they are giving the announcement, Mary Marvel, against her orders, decides to call Granny Goodness out and reveal who she really is in front of everyone. She mentions Eclipso, and Harley Quinn and Holly are just like, what is she doing? She's ruining everything. So Granny Goodness tells Trisha to kill Mary, and Holly and Harley help Mary fight against Granny's forces, and then Hippolyta shows up and fights Granny Goodness, reveals who she is to everybody, because nobody knows that it's Granny Goodness. They all think it's Athena. She cuts Granny's face, revealing her true identity, and Granny makes an escape through a boom tube, and Harley, stupidly, decides to run into the boom tube after her, and so Holly and Mary are like, did she really just do that? Alright, we're gonna have to go in after her, and so they run into the boom tube after Harley, without Hippolyta. And that's when Hippolyta turns to all the other Amazonians and is like, ladies, we need to talk, because it's been a while since she's been around. Most people thought she was dead, so now she's just gonna have to reveal everything to them. We just don't get to see it. Meanwhile, Pied Piper is in the middle of the desert with Trickster's severed hand after he cut it off so that he could detach himself from Trickster's body. For some reason, he decided not to pop the hand through the cuff. He decided to just leave it there because he wanted to talk to it. He starts rambling about how he found out he was gay while he was watching a movie, and there was a boy in it and he had a crush on him instead of the girl. It doesn't really matter. What matters is that a boom tube opens up in front of Piper, and he thinks that it's the light at the end of the tunnel because he's prepared for death at this point. In Bloodhaven, Brother Eye has assimilated with Bloodhaven. Karate Kid, I think, has taken the cure, even though we don't see him take it. Because he mentions that he's starting to feel better, so I'm assuming he took it off panel. We don't even get to see what it was. At this point, they don't even know what to do. Brother Eye is currently scanning the Atomic Knights for information, and that's when an OMAC soldier appears in front of them, which is Martin Stein. They say that Martin Stein was transformed into an OMAC soldier, and this OMAC soldier reveals to them that Brother Eye has gotten all the information he needed from the Atomic Knights, and he is going to use the boom tube to transport him to Apokolips. And so he sets off the boom tube, and it takes OMAC, like the entire dome that is over Bloodhaven, it transports it to Apokolips with Karate Kid, Una, Buddy Blank, like all of them are inside it. The only person that doesn't get teleported away is Buddy's grandson, who is still left inside the bunker. And the only way we know this is that we see a little speech bubble that says, "Grandpa?" And that's where the issue leaves off, on that cliffhanger. Brother Eye and his OMAC forces have arrived on Apokolips. They begin fighting the parademons, and Brother Eye begins assimilating with Apokolips. Karate Kid and Una have also arrived on Apokolips. They don't know what's happened to Buddy Blank and his grandson. They also mention that they don't know where they are, which doesn't make any sense. How would somebody from the Legion of Superheroes not know what Apokolips is? They come from thousands of years into the future. You would think by that point they would know what Apokolips is. Their goal is to just get off of Apokolips at the moment. Meanwhile, Jason, Kyle, Donna, and Ray are still on Apokolips, figuring out what they're gonna do. And it's at this point in Countdown that I finally realized that nobody in this series has ever gotten any character development at all. They all act the same now that they did back in issue 51. Some have arguably even gotten worse. Most notably, Jason Todd. He is such a prick to everyone, especially Ray. Now you could argue that it's because of that Batman that he knew for like a day that died, and that he's upset about that, which still wouldn't make sense because he barely knew that guy. But the fact is that Jason is the worst character in this series, and he just keeps getting worse because he decides to abandon the group like an angsty teen and search for something to punch in the face. And the worst part is, he doesn't even end up doing that. He finds Brother Eye, he finds all these OMAC soldiers, and he doesn't even fight them. He went out to look for something to punch, and then he didn't even end up punching anything. Pied Piper is also on Apokolips, still talking to the hand of the trickster. It's revealed that the reason he didn't pop the hand out of the cuff is because if he does that, the cuff will explode. I don't know why it would explode without Trickster, but I guess it's to stop him from taking it off. He's about to do it. He's about to take the hand out, and that's when another hand lands on his shoulder and says, "Whoa, don't do that. Stop with that attempt. I'll decide when it's time for you to die." Granny Goodness faces Holly Robinson, Harley Quinn, and Mary Marvel, who have all come to Apokolips. She sends her female Furies at them, and they all start fighting them. Harley fights Lashina, and Mary and Holly fight Stomper. Mary ends up fighting this character called Mad Harriet, who is basically the Joker, or the Creeper. Bites her on the nose. It's a bit dirty. Not really something that you would expect somebody like Mary Marvel to do, but I guess it's to show that she's got a more rough exterior now. Mary runs away from Mad Harriet, straight into gunfire, but ducks at the right time, and the soldiers accidentally shoot and kill Mad Harriet instead. And they all turn to each other and are like, "Oh, Granny Goodness is gonna be so mad with us." And then they just get knocked out by Harley and Holly anyway, so it doesn't even matter. I mean, Granny Goodness is gonna punish them when they wake up anyway, so it's not like they save them from that fate. During the battle, Granny Goodness stupidly reveals the fact that she's captured the gods. She's like, "You better not be here to free the gods." Like, why did she say that? She didn't have to say that. She didn't have to reveal that. And so Mary Marvel says that she has begun hearing voices, and she says that it's the voices of the gods. Don't know how she knows that, because wouldn't it just sound like regular people's voices? But that's what she says, even though she's lost her powers. Jimmy Olsen and Forager plan on going to Apokolips, but before they go there, Jimmy wants to meet with some old friends for help. So he heads to this place called The Habitat, and he finds these characters, and I don't know what their names are. I tried looking up the issue, like the wiki page on this issue to find out what their names are, they are never listed in the credits as characters that appear in this book, so I have no idea who they are. All I know is that they are friends of Jimmy, they come from this place called the Habitat, and they are going to help him attack Apokolips. Karate Kid and Una frantically try to find a way to get off of Apokolips before Brother Eye assimilates with it, and Una is like, no one knows we're here. If we lie low and ride it out, it's like, Una, he sent us here. Brother Eye knows we're on Apokolips. Do you want Brother Eye to assimilate me with the virus I'm carrying? And it's revealed that Una is in fact an OMAC soldier. So she transforms into an OMAC soldier and is like, as a factual matter, yes, Val. I do. With an I, E-Y-E, which is one of my least favorite parts of this, is that every single time Brother Eye says anything, he says I-E-Y-E instead of I, and it's stupid every single time. It's just stupid and dumb, and it makes Brother Eye seem like a joke. But how do we even get here from Infinite Crisis when he was an actual looming threat to now he just says I puns all the time? Earlier, when I talked about how it didn't make sense that Una and Karate Kid didn't know about Apokolips, I soon realized that it doesn't make sense that they don't know about the Great Disaster or this event that they're even starring in. The two of them are members of the Legion of Superheroes. They come from the far future. The Legion of Superheroes know everything about the past, which means they would know about this event, which means Una and Karate Kid should have known everything they were going to do before it happened, or after it happened. This is why it's hard to write characters that are from the far future, because there's no sense of discovery, because there's nothing in the past that they don't already know. Anyway, let's move on. Harley Quinn, Holly Robinson, and Mary Marvel are fighting against Granny Goodness's forces in search of the gods that Granny has kept locked away. So they fight through Granny's headquarters until they come across a mysterious door, and Mary decides that she's going to try and open it by calling on to her powers, which she has lost. So she calls Shazam in hopes that they will finally listen to her, and a bolt of lightning cracks down, which Donna, Kyle, and Ray Palmer see from a distance, and so they decide to head towards it, and it turns out that Mary Marvel has regained her powers and has become Miss Marvel again. She's even got her iconic white and gold costume, and this is the moment that Harley Quinn and Holly Robinson realize that she's not just a regular woman and that she has superpowers. And Harley even complains that she can't make fun of Mary anymore, because Mary will beat the crap out of her. Mary uses her powers to blow open the door, and the gods greet the three women, saying, "Hey, you saved us from Granny Goodness, and now we are forever grateful." Also, it seems like the gods had been preparing their entrance, because they're stood in a perfect line. It's like they rehearsed this before, because the last time we saw the gods, after they had been captured by Granny Goodness, they were all stripped of their clothes, they looked battered and bruised, they were all hanging up by cuffs. But in this, they somehow got out of the cuffs, got changed, cleaned themselves up, and were ready to present themselves. As thanks for helping them, a few of the gods give Harley and Holly some of their power, and so Harley and Holly gain some power from the gods and become superheroes for a little bit so that they can fight against Granny Goodness. Meanwhile, Karate Kid faces Una, who has been assimilated by Brother Eye. Una is trying to assimilate Karate Kid, but can't, and so it decides to go for Plan B, which is to annihilate Karate Kid and then try and assimilate with him. But then Jason Todd shows up for no reason. I mean, he has a reason at first. He shows up because he says he wants to help Karate Kid, but him helping is trying to kill Una. And Karate Kid's like, no, I'm not gonna let you kill Una. And so Jason's just like, alright then, screw you, see ya, and he just leaves. Because Jason Todd is the absolute worst. And after he leaves, Una grabs Karate Kid by the throat and blows his head up. His head doesn't get blown apart, but it does shoot a massive explosion out of his head, which apparently kills him. We don't know yet. But Una still can't assimilate with Karate Kid, so she takes him away to do an autopsy. Harley, Holly, and Mary catch up to Granny Goodness. She runs away, leaving her lackeys to deal with them. After defeating her lackeys, Holly uses her powers to sense where Granny Goodness is, so they keep chasing after her, but when they finally catch up to Granny Goodness, the mysterious harbinger that has been going around killing all the new gods appears in front of Granny and kills her with lasers and stuff, reducing her to a pile of ashes. And then Holly, and Mary are like, yay, we don't have to kill Granny Goodness, that's awesome. But weren't we supposed to use her in order to get back? Like, how are we going to get back home now without Granny Goodness? That's when Donna, Kyle, and Ray show up, and the six of them rendezvous with each other, and meanwhile, Pied Piper, it turns out that the mysterious person that had approached him was Darkseid. And the reason why Darkseid approached Piper is because he is offering Piper Apokolips. Because according to Darkseid, Piper is capable of playing music that can control the anti-life equation, therefore allowing him to take over Apokolips. So using his slimy words, he manages to convince Piper to begin playing his music. He even gets rid of the handcuffs that were attached to Piper, so he's now free. And Piper begins playing his music, and Darkseid is feeding off of his negative energy. He's like, good, play Piper, play. And Piper's playing, and that's when a whole bunch of explosions start going off, causing Darkseid and Piper to fall into a crevice below, and a voice calls out, "Father?" As all these explosions start erupting, all the other characters are feeling these explosions. It turns out that Brother Eye has officially assimilated with Apokolips and has become one with it. Can you hear me, Father Bruce? I am no longer a child. I have surpassed you, Father. I have become a world unto myself. Piper wakes up from the rubble of Apokolips, and as he wakes up and goes to grab his pipe, he sees Darkseid unconscious. He sees a weird thing on Darkseid's hand and wonders if it's some kind of GPS device. But as he goes over to Darkseid, Darkseid wakes up and tries to force Piper to use the anti-life equation to take over Apokolips and get rid of Brother Eye. But an Olmec soldier, the one holding Karate Kid, the Una one, shows up. And this is when Darkseid reveals that apparently he was the one behind everything when it came to Piper and Trickster, which makes no sense, and I think that Paul Dini pulled this out of his ass, because as far as I know, the Piper and Trickster storyline was written as it went. Like, he was just writing it as he went, each issue, just coming up with it on the spot, because it started off with them just buffooning around, just doing random stuff, and then all of a sudden, they were on the run from the feds, and then they were dealing with the conspiracy theory about salvation. You telling me that Darkseid planned all of that? There's no way. There's no way he planned all of that. He's just taking credit for it, because he says the reason he did it, the reason he sent this on them on this insane adventure was so that it would whittle Piper's mentality and his physicality until he was a husk of his former self, and then he would be easy to control, because apparently Pied Piper is a vessel for the anti-life equation. Darkseid is knocked out by Una, and then Una grabs Piper. Throughout these last few issues, there have been meetings between Darkseid and Solomon that have been going on, and I haven't mentioned them up until this point because it's just the two of them standing in a room saying, "Hey, you got a plan, don't you, Darkseid?" And Darkseid being like, "Yes, I have a plan, and the steps only go when I say they do." And that's every single scene with them, which is why I've been skipping over it. Jason Todd sees Una carrying Karate Kid and Pied Piper and decides to follow her to see where she's going, because he saw Karate Kid earlier and has now come to the conclusion that Karate Kid must be more important than he thought. Kyle, Donna, Mary, Harley, Holly, and Ray are all searching for Jason, because even though Jason is an asshole, he's still one of them, and they still need to find him, because maybe Jason will find whatever they're looking for anyway. They find a random hole on Apokolips that just happens to be the one that they need, and they enter it. Darkseid sees them and decides to follow them, and that's when it's revealed that Brother Eye is inside the hole somewhere, his core. Una drops off Piper and Karate Kid, and the OMAC begins scanning Karate Kid, and that's when it's revealed that the virus inside of Karate Kid is the Morticoccus virus. Now, if there are very few story ties in this that I commend Paul Dini on, it is this one, tying the Morticoccus virus that was revealed in Ray Palmer's story to be the virus that is inside Karate Kid. Because of course it is. It makes sense. And I like this reveal. I think it's one of the few reveals in this that I enjoy, because it ties together perfectly. It also means that Ray Palmer is probably the cure to Karate Kid, because he has the inoculation. The OMAC begins dissecting Karate Kid just as Jason Todd shows up. So Jason Todd tries to fight OMAC, and he is being beaten up by OMAC. So he tricks OMAC into breaking Firestorm's restraints, but Firestorm is still knocked out, so he can't help Jason. So Jason gets knocked out by Una, and that's when everybody else shows up. And so Una starts fighting everybody. Ray sees that they are dissecting Karate Kid, and so he, using his powers, jumps up and cuts through the dissection device, freeing Karate Kid. He then realizes that Karate Kid has the Morticoccus virus inside him, which means that he is a carrier. Brother Eye wakes up and states that it has everything it needs and that it doesn't need their presence, and so it sets off a boom tube which teleports a whole bunch of OMAC soldiers into the room, and off panel, the entire room is destroyed by OMAC soldiers. Piper wakes up and Darkseid grabs him and starts throwing him around, demanding him that he use the anti-life equation, and Piper agrees to use it, much to Darkseid's glee, but when he starts playing the music, Darkseid puts his hands against his ears and he's like, what are you doing? It isn't possible. I broke your spirit. I crushed your soul. And then his head explodes. Piper uses his music to blow up Darkseid's head. That was for what you did to Trickster, you sick son of a bitch. And now it's time for you to face the music. Pied Piper begins playing his pipe, and he refers to it as the perfect song, the showstopper. Now, you can imagine whatever song you want that Piper is playing in this, but I like to imagine that he is talking about the actual song Showstopper by Danity Kane. I just think it'd be really funny if he was playing that song during this moment, since it's the opposite of any kind of song you would think would play at this moment. Outside, the dawn is breaking, but inside, in the dark, I'm aching to be free. And as Apokolips explodes from music and the anti-life equation, Brother Eye, we can see flying away from Apokolips, so Brother Eye has survived. As Apokolips falls around them, Una is revealed to have become unassimilated from OMAC. Kyle has been knocked out somehow off panel. I guess a piece of rubble hit him on the head. But they need his ring in order to survive in space. And something has appeared in the room with them, according to Donna Troy. Now, not much actually happens in this next issue. A lot of it is just characters arguing with each other. A couple of revelations are revealed. One in particular is the fact that apparently Solomon was the reason that Monarch came back into existence again. He ruptured Captain Atom's suit so that he would become Monarch again, so that Monarch would orchestrate the Monitors all meeting on Earth 51. Apparently, that was all orchestrated by Solomon. So Solomon orchestrated Monarch to orchestrate the Monitors, including himself. It doesn't make any sense, but apparently that's what he did. Puppeteering Monarch to puppet him. And so Darkseid and Solomon are in a war to see who can complete their evil plan first. Darkseid's plan is to create a new reality that he will call the Fifth World. Solomon's plan is to use the virus inside Karate Kid to destroy all of humanity. Ray Palmer goes inside Karate Kid in an attempt to try and find a way to cure him, or he might have to kill him, but he is pulled out of Karate Kid by Firestorm, who reveals that Jimmy Olsen and his friends have all arrived now. And that's when all the characters have a big argument where Ray Palmer wants to kill Karate Kid because he believes that there's no way to cure him and that the virus is too dangerous, and so they may have to kill him. But Una's like, no, I don't want to kill Karate Kid. And at the same time, I'm thinking, why do they have to kill Karate Kid? Wasn't Ray Palmer going around to different Earths and curing them of the virus? Why can't he just cure Karate Kid? Like, why can't he cure him anymore? I thought he was doing that. I thought he was able to cure people. Apparently, now he can't. It's because he just doesn't have the cure on him at the moment. But I thought he was the cure. Wasn't his blood the cure? Jimmy Olsen also refuses to leave Apokolips because he wants to face Darkseid because he believes that Darkseid has the answers that he's looking for. And this pisses Donna off because she's like, dude, you're just gonna get yourself killed. We need to get out of here. And Jimmy just refuses to leave. And that's when the Monitor shows up and he reveals to Jimmy that Darkseid isn't the only one that can give him the answers that he's looking for. And he reveals to Jimmy that the reason why Jimmy has all of these powers is because Darkseid hid them inside of him. And the reason Darkseid did that is because he's waiting for the opportunity to take the powers from Jimmy and give them to himself, leaving Jimmy as a lifeless husk, and then he will use the powers to take over everything. He's just waiting for the perfect time. And the reason why he picked Jimmy of all people is because Jimmy is best friends with Superman, so none of the new gods would have gone after him. And so now Jimmy isn't too keen on going and facing Darkseid, because if he does that, Darkseid will just take the powers from him and kill him. And also, Monitor doesn't want Jimmy to do that. He won't let him do that. He's like, if you try and face Darkseid, I will kill you to stop you. Solomon soon has enough of the bickering and decides to just send everybody straight back to Earth while he deals with Darkseid himself. They all land on Earth and they decide that they need to find somebody to help cure Karate Kid. And Ray Palmer turns to everyone and says, we can do that, or we can kill him right now, and we're gonna have to make that choice. Do we kill Karate Kid, or do we cure him? Holly, Harley, Jason, and Jimmy decide to leave the rest of the group, while Donna, Ray, Mary, Una, and Kyle take Karate Kid to the JLA in an attempt to try and cure him. But when they get there, Ray can't get in, and then Superman arrives and he doesn't remember them. And then Green Lantern and the Flash arrive and they act like they don't know them. Firestorm arrives and says something really bad has happened, and Superman goes to fight Firestorm, but then Firestorm uses his powers to blind Green Lantern, Flash, and Superman so that they can get away. Because off-panel, Ray quickly hacks into some technology and uses it to teleport them away from the JLA. So it's not confirmed, but it's believed that they are not on their Earth and they are on another Earth where none of them existed. Ray does reveal in this issue that he does have the cure in his blood, and Kyle's like, okay, great. How about I conjure up some constructs to help you create an inoculation from your blood? And for some reason, Ray says that he doesn't know what he needs to make the inoculation, even though he's already made it before. Because in the previous issues, He made the inoculation, he took it to other Earths, and he cured them. So why doesn't he know how to do it? It doesn't make any sense. How do you not know what you need in order to make an inoculation that you've already made before? Una understandingly gets upset because she's like, you're all arguing and stuff and Val is dying. I really need you to help me cure him. Like, please, we gotta cure him. We have to save him. We're doing our best, Una. Please believe that. But the whole world is in danger because of the virus Val is carrying, and unless we can find a facility where we can synthesize inoculations from my blood, there's very little hope for any of us. Firestorm reveals that there is a super secret facility somewhere nearby, a Star Labs one, so they decide to search it out because they might be able to synthesize a cure there. When they head there, they find Jimmy because apparently habitat doesn't exist, and so he came to the conclusion that if he went to the secret facility, that his friends would all show up eventually. And Harley and Holly show up too because their place doesn't exist. Jason isn't here because he's busy beating up criminals in Gotham. He doesn't care about the fact that nobody remembers who he is. Harley really cares about the fact that Joker doesn't remember her. They enter the super secret facility where they come across a whole bunch of experiments, and so they fight against these clones and mutants. And then Jimmy all of a sudden remembers that he has the plot device power and can just create boom tubes. So he creates a boom tube and gets rid of all of the mutants right away. Easy peasy. Seriously, Jimmy Olsen is broken. Like, he can do anything. Probably the most overpowered DC character at the moment. That's when the character Double X appears. He has a history with Jimmy Olsen and he senses that using his mind powers. Even though he doesn't remember him, he senses that Jimmy knows him and has a long history. And so he allows them to talk to him, and Double X extracts all the information he needs from Una's head and realizes that they're here for the Morticoccus virus. It's like, and you contain the curative serum within you. So you can do it? You can save Val? If it were in my power to do so, I would. But I'm afraid your friend is already dead. Karate Kid's dead? What are they gonna do now? I guess we're gonna have to find out. Seriously though, all that arguing and all those pages of them just arguing and talking about curing Val, just to have this reveal that he's already dead anyway. Now, the next issue isn't that good, and it's not the premise of the issue that makes it not good, it's the execution, because it is a narration by one of the characters, Buddy Blank, narrating the events of the characters dealing with the Morticoccus virus, and it's not interesting at all. He's just saying everything that happens, and it would have been far more interesting if we just had dialogue and stuff, characters talking to each other. But there is no dialogue in this. It is all narration, and it's boring narration. Buddy gives us a step-by-step process on everything in regards to the virus, where they are testing on Karate Kid to try and extract the virus from him and create a cure, which means they have Ray Palmer in there as well, because his blood can be used to create the cure, but they're having a hard time figuring out how to do that. Which just begs the question, why did they even bring Ray to Star Labs? The reason they brought him here is because they said Star Labs is way ahead in technology, so they could definitely come up with an inoculation, but it turns out they can't. While they're working on trying to come up with a cure, Buddy Blank sees the local news where he says that there was some guy who went rabid, and then he got attacked by a dog, a police dog, and the police dog had human hands. We don't see them in the comic, but it is mentioned that it had human hands. Double X runs tests on Jimmy Olsen just to see what his powers are like. Meanwhile, they begin surgery on Karate Kid to extract the virus, but things go wrong. The virus gets loose and it grows to monstrous size, and that's when the heroes all have to fight it. Kyle Rayner tries to contain the Morticoccus virus in a construct, and it explodes into a puff of dust. So Ray screams at Kyle to try and contain as many of the virus's molecules as possible, but unfortunately, he fails, and the virus gets out, and that's when the epidemic begins. First it hits Gotham. There's a moment where Jason and Kyle have conflict in Gotham, and it's at this point that I wish that this wasn't just a narration, so that we could actually hear what they're saying to each other, because there are plenty of times in this issue where characters are arguing with each other, but because it's narration, you don't even know what they're arguing about. They mention kind of the idea of what they're arguing about, but it would be more interesting if we actually heard the conversations. They mention that they create a limited number of inoculations from the Atom's blood, which they choose to give to the heroes that they consider viable for putting out fires and stuff caused by the Motococcus virus. This includes characters like the Flash and Martian Manhunter. It is then revealed that the virus, what it does when it enters a person's body or an animal's body, because it doesn't just affect humans, it affects animals too, it swaps their genetics around. So a human gains animalistic qualities, and an animal will gain human qualities, which explains why the dog on the news had human hands, and why the man was acting rabid like a dog. Throughout this issue, Una is dealing with the grief of losing Karate Kid, and she turns to Buddy Blank as her consult, or her therapist of sorts. There's a weird moment in this where characters continue to argue, right? And Buddy Blank, for some reason, refers to them all as anomalies. He refers to Harley Quinn, Holly Robinson, and Mary Marvel as anomalies, because they're in the panel when he says the word anomalies. Yet Jason is the only one in this panel who is an anomaly. These other three characters were born on this Earth and didn't die and weren't resurrected when they weren't supposed to be. Turns out one of the scientists at Star Labs got infected somehow and starts showcasing animalistic qualities. Turns out she was showing the same qualities of the animals that she interacted with, which were the mice. And so the heroes all start having bigger meetings about how to deal with the virus. It started spreading to places like Europe. This is when Una decides to explain to Buddy Blank why the virus is so elusive. See, this is what I don't get. Earlier on, they said that they created an inoculation for the virus, but now they're saying that the virus is incurable? How did they make those inoculations if it's apparently not curable? The reason why it's apparently not curable is because it fused with Karate Kid's DNA, and Karate Kid comes from the 31st century. So because he comes from 10,000 years in the future, the virus is immune to any kind of medical cure or anything that comes from before then. Because at that far in the future, they have way better medicine and stuff like that. So the only way to cure the Motococcus virus would be to somehow get a cure from 10,000 years in the future. Fights start breaking out between the heroes who are arguing. Mary Marvel punches Jason and is said to have almost killed him. So just more character assassination for Mary. And Hal wants to go out into space and find aliens to help them, or other planets, because they're this desperate. They won't let Hal do this because it's too dangerous, because Hal might be carrying the virus. Buddy decides that he's had enough and he wants to go and find his daughter and grandson, and Una has nothing left because Karate Kid was the only person she knew from the 31st century, so she wants to go with Buddy. It takes a little bit of convincing, but he eventually says yes, and they head off together. And this is when it's revealed that Hal Jordan did decide to leave Earth without anyone saying, and head off to find another planet that could possibly help them. But he has the virus, which means he is now spreading the virus to other planets, because Hal Jordan is an idiot in this, and I don't think he would ever actually do something like this, because he's smarter than that. Like, Hal Jordan can be reckless at times, but he's not that reckless. He's not reckless enough that he's gonna risk other planets with a virus that he knows he has. So this next issue is crazy. And while reading it, I remembered that this is not Earth 1 that the heroes are on. We gotta keep that in mind. This is not their Earth. This is that other Earth that they arrived on where nobody knows who they are. It just looks exactly like their Earth, so it was very easy to forget that they were on a different Earth and not just the normal one. So it's not the regular Earth that is being attacked by the virus, it is this other Earth that they are on. Just like the last issue, this issue is narrated entirely by Buddy Blank. Most of it is about him and Una running through Metropolis as it is taken over by the virus. And it's really bad. It's just super grim and depressing. I did not enjoy reading this issue at all. They run through the streets of the city and people are being turned into animals, and they eventually get to Buddy's apartment, which is strewn with dead bodies, and they find his grandson, and it turns out his mother had been infected and tried to kill him, which means Buddy Blank's daughter has been infected, which is really bad. But also, his grandson's dog has been infected, and this is probably the most ridiculous part of this. The dog comes in holding a knife. It looks like a little dude wearing a dog mask. He's holding a knife, he lunges at them, and Una kicks the dog in the chest, killing it, which upsets Buddy's grandson because that was his dog and he loved it. And then an army of rats that are infected all attack Una and start biting her and stuff. She can't get them off because they're really powerful, so they run outside while she's got all of these rats all over her, and when they get outside, they see Buddy's daughter, and Buddy comes to the conclusion that he may have to kill his own daughter because she's infected and she's already gone feral. And so she attacks Buddy, but Una saves Buddy and fights his daughter. The two of them become overwhelmed by rats, and they die. Both of them. Una and his daughter fall to the ground and get eaten alive by rats. It is messed up. I hate it. It sucks because Una had just gone through that whole thing with Karate Kid where she lost one of the people that she was closest to, and she just wanted to get away and live a life somewhere else, and this is what she gets? It's awful. Before she dies, she gives Buddy her ring and tells him to use it, and he grabs his grandson and flies off with him while we see his daughter and Una getting eaten by rats below. It's so bad. I hate this so much. It's disgusting. They head to a nearby bunker where they watch the world getting ravaged by the virus, and we see that Omak is outside of Earth watching as it happens. Sorry, Brother Eye is outside. US decides to nuke the planet in an attempt to get rid of the Mortococcus virus, which obviously kills pretty much everyone that isn't in the bunker. It also doesn't kill the Mortococcus virus because it's too powerful at this point, and so the remaining survivors, who come from the other Earth, decide that this Earth is fucked, so let's just get out of here and try and find our Earth again. And so they leave through a boom tube, and for some reason, Buddy Blank decides not to go with his grandson. He decides not to leave. I don't know why, but he dooms himself to being on this planet. He tells his grandson that he's sorry that he had to do this. It's like, why are you doing this? Why didn't you go with the other heroes? Why are you dooming your own grandson to this kind of life? And then at the very end, we see Brother Eye looming over planet Earth. Why did Buddy Blank do all of this? Well, there's actually an answer to that. The reason why Buddy Blank doomed his own grandson to being the only man left on Earth is because Buddy Blank's grandson is a character called Commandy, the last boy on Earth. Commandy is a character created by Jack Kirby that came out years ago. That's the big plot twist, that this entire time, Buddy Blank's grandson is Commandy. And this is a complete retcon of Commandy's entire origin. In the original origin, Buddy Blank found Commandy and raised him, but in this it is established that Buddy Blank and his grandson come from the main Earth, and they ended up on this Earth, and then this Earth became the Earth that Commandy lives on. Because originally Commandy's Earth was just an alternate Earth. He didn't come from the main Earth, so they retconned all of that. Commandy's original Earth was ravaged. It was an apocalyptic land that was created by something called the Great Disaster, which up until now, it was never known what the Great Disaster is. This series tries to retcon that and say that the Great Disaster was the Mortococcus virus. And in Commandy's future, the dominating species on planet Earth is a species called the Animan, who are animal-human hybrids. And so that's why the Mortococcus virus was turning people into animal-human hybrids, because that was the beginning of the evolution of the Animan. And in Commandy's future, Brother Eye is one of the dominating forces of the Earth, which is why Brother Eye ended up on this Earth, because he's going to eventually take over it. What they've done to Jack Kirby's Commandy is atrocious. Just taking such a whimsical, science fiction world and retconning its origin to be so cynical and just depressing and atrocious. Like all the death and stuff, like all of that stuff was implied in the original version. But now that we've seen it and they've made it a reality, I feel like they did it in the worst way possible, especially all the stuff with Buddy Blank just leaving his grandson to suffer like this. I can see why Paul Dini decided to do this, to fill in the blanks of Jack Kirby's Commandy and explain what the Great Disaster is. But he did it in the worst way possible, in a way that doesn't make any sense, because it makes no sense why Buddy Blank would doom him and his grandson to this kind of life. He swears that he's going to protect his grandson until the day that he dies, but he's still dooming his grandson to a life of being alone on this Earth where he is the only human, when he could have just left with all of the other heroes. It just doesn't make sense. The heroes finally end up on their Earth, and we are reminded just how much nearly everyone in this story sucks. Because immediately as they get back to their Earth, Holly and Harley are like, hey, see you guys, we're going off to Gotham City. And Jason is like, screw you guys, I hate all of you, I'm leaving too, I'm going off to Gotham City. Even though they know that Darkseid has some kind of sinister plan and is going to attack the planet Earth, most of these characters don't care. Even Mary Marvel, a character who was evil for most of Countdown, and then finally redeemed herself, decides that it's more important for her to go and check out Paradise Island and figure out what happened during that whole situation than it is for her to just stay with the rest of the heroes and deal with the Darkseid stuff. So she also says goodbye and goes her separate way. But the bad thing about Mary Marvel is that she was lying. She wasn't just leaving to go and check Paradise Island. She was leaving because she just didn't want to care about other people. She was like, why should I give a shit about helping people? I need time to myself because I've been through so much. She's being incredibly selfish. She even tries to reason with herself that she's not being selfish. And as she enters her apartment, she comes face to face with Darkseid. Darkseid's like, hey, you didn't think I forgot about you, did you? Look at this. Check this out. And he holds out this purple orb. And Mary's like, what's this? He's like, that's the power that you left behind. The Black Adam power. I'm gonna give it back to you. And Mary's like, no, I'm good now. I'm not evil. I don't need that. I've got my powers back. And Darkseid's like, yeah, you got your powers back. But you can sense that the gods didn't give you your full powers because they don't fully trust you. And you can sense that. Mary, when you held this power, did you feel evil? I felt strong. I felt strong. You see, evil is an abstract. It's a mere perception. Do you hear it, Mary? How it sings to you, calls for you. Take it. Be complete. Be strong once more. All I require is one tiny favor. That's right. Mary Marvel, after everything she's been through in this entire story, the entire redemption arc that she went through and eventually regained her powers, is completely undone in this issue because she falls for Darkseid's words and takes Black Adam's powers back and becomes evil again. She just completely flips. It's incredibly stupid. It's like, what was even the point of redeeming her in the first place if you're just gonna have her switch face not long after that? Hippolyta senses that Mary is making a shit decision and is like, oh, so disappointed, Mary. What she's really thinking about is how she doesn't want to be in this shit series anymore. She's just like, oh, why do I have to be in another issue of Countdown? This series is so bad. It is then revealed that the Earth that was destroyed by the Mordecocus virus was Earth 51. The same Earth that was also destroyed by Superman Prime. The Monitors recreated the Earth after it was destroyed by Superman Prime, and then the Monitor destroyed it again. Solomon destroyed it again with the Mordecocus virus, and so now the Monitor that owns that Earth is really pissed at him because that's twice now that the Earth he's watching has been destroyed. Kyle, Ray, Forager, and Donna decide to take Jimmy Olsen to the JLA because they think that the JLA might be able to help them understand what's going on with Jimmy and figure out Darkseid's plan. But when they get there, evil Mary Marvel shows up and declares that she is evil again, she has Black Adam's powers again, and she's working for Darkseid, and she's come to grab Jimmy Olsen. So she starts fighting the heroes in a big, massive battle, completely undoing all of her character development and assassinating her character beyond belief, to a point of being irredeemable at this point. She's knocked out for a moment by a car thrown by Donna, and Donna points out that the JLA haven't come out for some reason, so where are they? Mary emerges from the car and quickly grabs Jimmy Olsen and flies away with him, and she gets away. And Donna's like, oh shit, she got away. That sucks. Because now Darkseid's plan is even further, because now he has Jimmy Olsen, so it means that he'll be able to take Jimmy's powers for himself. And that's when Forager is like, that's not going to happen on my watch. We're going to find Jimmy Olsen and save him, even if we have to go to the ends of creation itself. Donna, Kyle, and Forager meet with Roy Harper to explain to him everything that's happened, how Mary Marvel has turned evil, how she's kidnapped Jimmy and is bringing him to Darkseid, and how Ray Palmer, aka the Atom, has gone missing. Nobody knows where he is, but he's disappeared again. Meanwhile, Jimmy Olsen comes face to face with Darkseid and Mary Marvel, where Darkseid plans to take control of Jimmy, because Jimmy is the vessel for all of the powers that Darkseid has sought throughout the universe. But before Darkseid can do anything, Superman shows up and punches him in the face because Red Arrow called him. So now Superman is here to help Jimmy fight Darkseid, and so Superman and Darkseid have a massive fight with each other where Superman hurts Darkseid enough that it really pisses him off, where he's like, you dare lay your hands on mighty Darkseid? You dare! Yeah, I do dare. What can I say? I guess I'm just not a fan of murderous tyrants. I like when Superman has a certain level of cheek to him while he's fighting. I don't really like Countdown, but this dialogue I'm kind of a fan of. I like when Superman kind of mocks his enemies a little bit while he's fighting them. While this fight is going on, Mary Marvel fights the Forager, but that's when Donna Troy and Kyle Rayner show up alongside Vixen and Black Canary, and they all fight Mary Marvel together. But Mary Marvel is incredibly powerful, so it's a bit of a struggle. While Superman is fighting Darkseid, Darkseid uses his Omega Beams, which he shoots around Superman and towards Jimmy. He hits Jimmy with the Omega Beams, and this is how he unlocks Jimmy and gains control of him. So he gains control of all of Jimmy's powers, and he forces Jimmy to turn into solid kryptonite, which he uses against Superman. So he's like, watch Jimmy, watch as your best friend suffers because of you, and there's nothing you can do about it because I control you. So using you, I will kill Superman. And then it's revealed that Ray Palmer went inside Jimmy Olsen. So he's currently inside him in his Kryptonian form, or his kryptonite form. Doesn't make any sense because it was already established that kryptonite is deadly towards Kryptonians, but it also hurts humans as well. It's radioactive. If you're around kryptonite for too long, you will get cancer from it. That's what happened to Lex Luthor. He had a kryptonite ring on for a long period of time, and he got cancer from it, and he had to get his hand cut off. Ray Palmer is currently inside a human made out of kryptonite. He should be fried right now, because it is incredibly radioactive in there. This would be like if you decided to enter a nuclear bunker, right where the core is and all the radiation. So, the heroes continue to fight Mary Marvel, where she grabs Kyle and uses him as a weapon. She's like, Kyle, I swear by the gods, Mary, you want your boyfriend so badly? Here! And she starts using Kyle to hit Donna, just smacking him on top of her on the ground, just whap, 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 whap. Heh, how about that? Looks like I'm the last girl standing. Ray finds a peculiar piece of technology inside Jimmy and pulls it off, which causes Jimmy to react. And then a whole bunch of bugs start crawling in around and start attacking Ray. It seems like these are Apokoliptian antibodies. And Ray is like, oh, I just hope it wasn't too late. And so it's presumed that Ray might die here, but I highly doubt that they would kill off another character, especially someone as big as Ray Palmer. Jimmy starts freaking out and he transforms into a giant lizard version of Jimmy. Says, you want the power I got inside me, Darkseid? Then come and get it. Kind of looks like if you took the character Abomination and Jimmy Olsen and infused them together. Darkseid and Jimmy Olsen fight one another in a titanic battle where Darkseid has grown to the size of a skyscraper without any real explanation. There's a moment where Kyle asks why Darkseid is so big, and Donna just says, because he's Darkseid and he can do that. I'm pretty sure growing in size is not something that Darkseid can do. He's really powerful, but he can't just do anything he wants. There is a limit. Jimmy picks up a bridge and smashes Darkseid with it. Meanwhile, Ray Palmer is inside Jimmy Olsen still and finds the soul battery that Darkseid is using to control Jimmy. And so he rips the soul battery out, which turns Jimmy back to normal and saves him from death at the hands of Darkseid. And then Ray Palmer goes, hey, I got your soul battery. Yanked it out of Olsen's medulla. You want it? Well, tough. And then he breaks it. And that pisses Darkseid off. He's like, no! Ray Palmer, you've dabbled in these affairs for the last time. I may not have brought you back to this world, but I will most gladly be the one to send you away. And then a boom tube appears from behind Darkseid. He's like, what? A boom tube? Who sent that? And it's Orion, the son of Darkseid. Orion has arrived to put an end to his father once and for all. And he tells the heroes that they need to stay out of this, because this is his fight and not theirs. And so Darkseid and Orion have a massive fight with each other, where Darkseid grabs Orion's head and blows it up with energy, which obviously doesn't kill him, because he's a god. Orion then just starts screaming at his father. This fight is mine and mine alone. The father of Apokolips shall meet his banished son in the red light of the fire pits, and there they shall decide this war. I will fulfill the prophecy. Orion will have his victory. And then an Omega Beam just gets shot into his back, and Darkseid's just like, shut up, son, I'm gonna kill you. Insufferable child, naive brute, you will have nothing. Darkseid will have all. And he just kicks Orion, sending him falling into the ground below, while Superman tells everyone to just watch and not do anything. This is between a father and his son, Kyle. This is between gods. Darkseid walks over to Orion and rests his foot on top of Orion's head. This is destiny, boy. All is as it was meant to be. You can't possibly hope to fight it now. You can only die. Here is your destiny, father. Here is your fate. Orion is merciless! And he just punches the shit out of Darkseid. Massive explosion happens. Darkseid and Orion clasp hands. I don't see your precious fire pits, Orion, so tell me, what good is your talk of prophecy now? I will kill you. even if I must die to do it. Ha 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 ha. That's the spirit. These are the words of the one I would call son. I'm nothing like you. And Orion punches his fist through Darkseid's chest. What was it you said? No fire pits? Your hellish heart is fire pit enough to fulfill the prophecy. And Orion pulls his fist out of Darkseid's chest, and Darkseid's chest begins to override as energy pours out of it. No, not me. It was never meant to be me. Ever so arrogant, this Darkseid. Straight through to the end. Goodbye, father. No! And a massive explosion engulfs Darkseid, and Darkseid dies. And Orion is left just feeling beaten up. You know, Kyle's just like, hey, is he gonna be alright? Should we do something with him? And Superman's like, no, we just let him go. No one can help him now. His day is done. We see the remains of Darkseid. There came a time when the new gods died. So yeah, Darkseid is dead, and Orion, at the moment, is the only new god left. After the great battle with Darkseid, Jimmy Olsen officially enters a relationship with Forager, and they start living together. Meanwhile, Ray Palmer returns to his house where he thinks about Jean, and Donna arrives, and they both try to figure out, because after everything they've been through, they still have questions. Meanwhile, Pied Piper wakes up, having survived the destruction of Apokolips, and he decides that he is going to continue doing good. He's going to do work for the angels and be a good guy. Jason Todd asks himself what he's learnt throughout this entire year, because apparently this event has taken place over an entire year, which is not very believable, since we aren't really given a proper time frame like 52. With 52, each issue was a week, but in this, each issue was just something that was going on. Jason Todd's entire character arc in this is that throughout the entire year, the thing he learnt was to not change and be exactly the same as he was before this. Solomon states that after Darkseid's defeat, the Source Wall has been mended, and the multiverse is safe, and he leaves a statue to remind Darkseid that he is a fool for trying to do this in the first place. Ray, Kyle, and Donna gather together and talk about the monitors, and they come to the conclusion that nobody is watching the monitors, because the monitors are watching them, but who's watching the monitors? They've already been proven to not be able to make good decisions. Donna decides that they should be the ones who watch the monitors. Ray's like, no, that's insane. Meanwhile, Mary Marvel meets with Black Adam, and Black Adam is like, hello, Mary. You know, I gave you my powers. I offered you to become like a child to me, and instead you acted like a spoilt brat and threw a tantrum, and so I don't want anything to do with you. And Mary's like, don't you dare turn your back to me. As I normally find beating children distasteful, I'll ignore you. Farewell, Mary. And then he just leaves, and Mary's just like, fine, go. I don't need you. I'm Mary Marvel. I don't need anyone. I'm Mary damn Marvel. On the other Earth with Buddy Blank and Commandy, Brother Eye communicates with Buddy and transforms him into the hero Omak, which is a character from many years ago created by Jack Kirby. So they've brought that back into the continuity where Buddy Blank is now Omak, and his goal is to serve Brother Eye and protect Commandy. He doesn't know exactly what Brother Eye wants with him, but he will find out next time Brother Eye gets in contact with him. I assume this was to set up an Omak series. Forager, Ray Palmer, Donna Troy, and Kyle Rayner all head to the Monitor's headquarters to tell them that they are going to be watching them from now on. The Monitors are like, how dare you? We are the Monitors. We don't need to be watched by anyone. And one of the Monitors, who is representing Donna, Ray, Forager, and Kyle, is like, I trust these humans and this bug person, and they will be watching you, watching us, because we are flawed. And so These 4 characters are going to serve as the guardians of the multiverse, and whatever we do has to go through them. We have to turn to them and ask them if it's okay, basically. We came to serve notice. We're out there. Watch yourselves. And Solomon from the darkness is like, ooh yes, well, and so a new game begins. And then in Gotham City, Harley and Holly have a conversation where Harley's like, there's so much going on here and out there, and places we don't even know about. Everything's so scary and uncertain. We never know when fate will shake it all up. That's pretty deep. I don't wonder how we'll ever make it through. Positive attitude and lots of denial? I guess we can fall back on what's gotten us this far. Never change, Harley. The end. And that's the end of Countdown to Final Crisis. Overall, this series really does deserve the amount of negative attention that it gets, especially towards the end when it started doing all of the stuff with Darkseid, and just the whole plot with Mary Marvel was bad, the whole plot with Karate Kid was bad, the whole plot with Harley and Holly was uninteresting. The only parts that I enjoyed was the stuff with Ray Palmer, really. The Jimmy Olsen stuff was kind of interesting as well. Though I do not think that this series is the worst event ever created by DC. I don't think Countdown to Final Crisis is the worst thing that DC has ever made. It's not even the worst event. The reason why I think that is because while Countdown is atrocious and it has a lot of bad things about it, it's not boring. You could read it and be so engrossed in its atrociousness. And that's what stops it from being a bad event, in my opinion. Because the worst kind of event, is a boring one. And one of the most boring events I know is Millennium, so that's why I think that's still the worst event DC has ever made, because of how boring it is. Like, at least this ends with a pretty cool fight between Orion and Darkseid. Like, there's some cool fights within it, there's some cool moments that keep you interested, and the fact it's so bad keeps you interested, because you're just wondering, is it gonna get any better? How bad could it really get? And so, yeah, that's why I think it's not the worst thing DC has ever made. It's definitely up there, maybe top 5, but not number 1. Like, I think Bloodlines and Millennium and Armageddon 2001, I think those are all still worse because those are much more boring and less uneventful than Countdown. But that doesn't mean Countdown isn't bad. It's still atrocious. It's just not as bad or boring as those ones. Unless you want to inflict yourself with mind-numbing torture, do not read this, or you have a YouTube channel where you make comic book content, because you're not going to get anything out of it except more questions and frustration. In the end, I don't regret reading this, because I want to read everything. I want to read all of the bad stuff and see why it's bad, see if there's anything good within it, which there is some good in this, but a lot of bad. I'm glad I read it. I'm glad I read a lot of the tie-ins, because some of the tie-in miniseries were way better than this. So don't read Countdown to Final Crisis, but read Salvation Run. Maybe check out Countdown Arena, because that's kind of fun. Or The Search for Ray Palmer, because those are fun too. Just don't read the main series unless you want to read everything and you're okay with reading something bad. I think Countdown to Final Crisis might even be a guilty pleasure of mine now, because as much as I hate it, I kind of love how ridiculous it is. And I almost feel a little bit like I'm missing something now that I've finished it, because I've spent so long with this series and its tie-ins, been reading this stuff for 3 months, and when you've been reading a story for so long, even something as bad as this, you kind of miss it when it's over. You're like, oh, it's gone, and I'm probably never gonna read it again. And that's it. That's it for Countdown to Final Crisis. Next week, we are going to be reading Death of the New Gods, and then once we're done with that, I'm going to be taking a break from DC stuff, and I will be talking about the Friday the 13th comic books. All of them. Over the next few weeks, I will be doing a few Friday the 13th comics each week, so look forward to that. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I'll see you next week for the Death of the New Gods mini-series, written by Jim Starlin. Have a good one.